The White House is pushing Congress to pass more aid for Ukraine by the end of the year. President Biden is asking lawmakers for nearly $106 billion to help Ukraine and Israel, plus more money for border security. But Republican lawmakers are trying to get immigration policy changes in exchange. The White House warns the U.S. will run out of funding to send weapons and assistance to Ukraine by the end of the year. Admiral John Kirby joins us now. He is the National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications. Admiral, always great to see you, and thanks you for joining us today.
Oh, it's good to be with you, Ouija.
The White House has made clear to lawmakers that you're running out of time and you're running out of money to fund Ukraine. So since the deadline is so sensitive here, John, has the president picked up the phone and engaged with Republicans on this personally?
Well, I don't have any phone calls to speak to in terms of the president's schedule, but I can tell you that at various levels throughout the administration, we have and will continue to brief and to consult members of Congress about the very real needs when it comes to supporting Ukraine, and particularly at this very delicate time here towards the end of the year. And as the winter months make it harder and harder now for the Ukrainians to try to make more progress.
Republicans have spelled out what they are looking for, and that is policy changes on the border. Is there any room for negotiation here?
The last thing I'm going to do is negotiate on television, but I can tell you that the president on day one signed an immigration reform bill, or didn't sign it, put forward an immigration reform proposal to Congress. Again, on day one of the administration, that's been languished and not acted on. So we're willing to have a discussion with members of Congress about immigration reform, but we got to have this funding for Ukraine and for Israel, particularly in the case of Ukraine, because by the end of the year, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to provide any support for them.
But, John, it's the White House that bundled border security funding with aid for Ukraine, with aid for Israel, with aid for Indo-Pacific countries. So did that not open up the door for negotiations on the border by attaching all that together?
Well, we attached border security and Indo-Pacific security to Ukraine and Israel funding because they're all urgent. They all get right at our national security, and we want that border security funding passed as well. It will allow for more Border Patrol agents. It'll allow for more asylum court officers. It will help with some of the physical infrastructure at the border. So we definitely want that passed as well. These are all important. Each of them matter to the United States and to our national security, and we want Congress to act on them. As I said, we have been willing and able to have a discussion about immigration reform in this country. And it was something we put forward on day one. Congress has not shown any serious intent or desire to talk to us about that. But right now, there's an urgent need for border security funding, and that's what we want them to move on.
And, John, there's an urgent need, of course, for funding for Israel as well, for Ukraine, all of these things. And the president has already said he would veto any Israel-only bill. But is he open to different iterations of these packages coming together, or does it have to be all of his priorities or nothing at all?
Well, again, I don't want to negotiate here in public. We put a very thoughtful supplemental funding request together, Ouija. It was informed very much directly by our Israeli counterparts and our Ukrainian counterparts about what they need in the weeks and months ahead. Israel to go after Hamas, Ukraine to defend its territory against Russia. Those were well-informed decisions and well-informed dollar figures. We think they're all important. And again, we urge Congress to pass this supplemental funding. But I want to stress again, as I said in my first answer to your very first question, we remain in close consultation with members of Congress. We've been briefing them in classified and unclassified sessions about what's going on, particularly in Ukraine, and how desperate the need is for additional support.
And before I let you go, Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville has announced that he is dropping his hold on military nominations, except for 4-star general and flag officers. So it's not all, but it's way more than nothing. So can you talk to us about how this will impact military readiness and what it means to have a hold on, nearly a dozen of those 4-star generals?
Yeah, great question, Ouija. First of all, obviously, we're glad to see that the hold's going to get lifted. That will free up these several hundred officers and now move on with their lives, take new assignments, lead our troops in critical missions. But we got to get those 4 stars confirmed as well, because they're leading at the very top leadership level. They're responsible for some very, very strategic issues around the world. We need to see them confirmed as well, just as soon as possible.
All right. Admiral John Kirby, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us now. Nikole, today the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, talked about that aid package that I was just chatting with the Admiral about. I'm going to play some of what he said and then talk to you about it on the other side.
I'll just tell you that any national security package has to begin with the security of our own border. That's what the American people deserve. We have to effect real policy change at the border, and that is a necessary condition to anything we do going forward.
Nikole, is there any wiggle room here, or do you think that Republicans are really going to double down on wanting these policy changes in exchange for Ukraine aid?
Well, I think the latter, and I think you heard the speaker elaborate why. I mean, look, he has made clear that he doesn't believe negotiations should go forward with the Biden administration until there is more of a commitment to address some of these fundamental issues at the border and changes that they would like to see. The issue is that for many Democrats, they feel that the changes that Republicans are pushing, whether this is over the issue of asylum seekers, detention, migrants, and the like, that they're just simply too draconian, nor should they necessarily be tied to a national security supplemental that is so urgently needed in their view. The speaker also wrote back to the budget director, White House budget director Shalonda Young, who, as you know, just this week kind of sounded the alarm about the importance of continuing funding, particularly for Ukraine, suggesting that there is no magic pot out there to keep that effort funded. But in his letter back to, the budget director, the speaker again emphasized this importance of addressing the border. So I do expect that that will continue to be the position of not only House Republicans, but many Senate Republicans as well going forward.
And I know there was a big briefing on Capitol Hill today about that funding, but the White House has been sounding these alarms now for several months. So did that move anything along?
Again, I think all sides are pretty entrenched in their positions, and certainly keep in mind there are many Republicans who are supportive of the need to provide Ukraine with additional aid. But, in the view at least of the speaker and many House Republicans, they simply want more accountability. They want to know exactly how this money is spent, how it is being implemented, and they want more information on the overall strategy before they say they can proceed.
And Nikole, I want to ask you about former interim speaker Patrick McHenry, who of course was leading the House as much as he could when there was a big question mark about who would be the permanent speaker. He has now said that he is not going to seek re-election. Why not? And should we expect other lawmakers to follow him out of Congress?
Well, many lawmakers have already run for the exits, so much so in record numbers. And now, of course, Patrick McHenry becoming the latest, which is notable because, of course, he was the one who kind of saved the day, right, during that protracted speaker battle earlier this fall, serving as the acting speaker, the speaker pro tem. But look, and also keep in mind that he was a key ally of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He is someone who is very integral to that debt limit deal that we saw earlier this year. So it is a loss in terms of the Republican conference, as he was kind of one of the more moderate members, but certainly a sign of what we were seeing writ large here in the Capitol, as many members, both in the House and Senate, have announced that they won't seek re-election next year, in particular because many of them frustrated with the way this place is working or the lack thereof.
And that is something that you cover for us every single day. Nikole, thank you so much for being with us.
You bet.